We've all heard the phrase that there's no such thing as a dumb question, correct? And that's true. Questions serve a purpose. However, there are questions that can be inappropriate. There are questions, if you've ever seen an interview, that can be turned into a gotcha. And a question can often kind of expose the bias or the perspective of the person asking the question. Questions are very interesting because they can be used as a dagger. And we've all met people who use them and are prying too much. And I'm sure you've experienced death by 1,000 questions sometimes, where people just want to know. This morning, our Lord encounters an individual like this. Somebody who's very nosy, and dare I say, a little entitled. And our Lord, as the gospel says, is going from village to village, town to town. What that means is that he's going about teaching. He's near Jerusalem, so he's not too far from Jerusalem. So that means that most of the people who he is encountering are Jewish. And so he is encountering people who hold the faith and the law very, very important. But if you read the gospel, you realize that this sounds a little different. Our Lord doesn't sound very kind. In this passage, he pretty much says that getting into heaven is a narrow gate. Not everyone's going to get in. And those who come knocking afterwards are going to be told, I don't know who you are. Interesting. And if you recall from last Sunday, the gospel also was a little odd, wasn't it? Our Lord said, I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring division. And I will separate and divide mother from daughter, father from son, mother-in-law from daughter-in-law. Well, that sounds interesting. How do we square that circle? Well, to understand today's gospel, we kind of have to go back to last week and kind of put that into context. So when our Lord said, I came to bring division, note what he was dividing. He was dividing mother from daughter, father and son. He didn't say, I came to divide rich from poor, the upper echelon from the lower echelon, Gentile from Jew. He didn't say that. So what did he mean by that? Well, he was addressing the fact that in those days, tribalism was big, and everybody went into their sects. And so by saying that I came to bring division to mother and daughter, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, father and son, he is saying, I am breaking open the tribe, which is key because who is Luke's target audience? Gentiles. And what he is saying is that the covenant is being broken open. No longer is salvation just for, the covenant is just for the Jewish people, just for those who are circumcised. No. Our Lord came to fulfill the law. And now the family's being broken open. Salvation is open to the many. And word is getting out that the Gentiles are part of the chosen ones. And that is stirring some emotion. And so when our Lord is going and teaching, he finds this gentleman who is probably rather prideful. And the guy has the audacity to ask our Lord this question. Lord, will only a few people be saved? It's kind of a nosy question. I'm sure we've all thought it. So he has the nerve to ask the Lord the question. But kind of looking through the weeds here, we can kind of assume that this gentleman is asking the question because he is saying, Lord, surely we're the only ones that are going to be making it to heaven, right? Only us will be saved. Them over there? Nah. I mean, I only want to be saved if I don't have to continue to put up with them. There's a bit of that going on in this question. And our Lord answers by pretty much saying, you have no idea what you're asking. Strive to enter the narrow gate. Don't you presume that you're going to have a place in the kingdom. And in fact, I tell you, that when you enter the narrow, that those who enter the narrow gate will be strong, and those who don't, well, they'll be locked away. The door will be locked, and they'll come knocking and banging on the gate, and they will cry, "Lord, open up for us." And the Lord will tell those precisely to whom you'd think would be the first ones in. The Lord will say, "I don't know where you are from." And this hits them really hard, because you see these communities outside of Jerusalem, they just presume that they're going to be the first ones saved. They have been following the law all of these years. Certainly they have a place of primacy, do they not? And our Lord says, no. The kingdom of heaven will be filled with people from the north, from the south, from the east, and from the west. But from right here, where I'm standing, I cannot tell you. Only many, not all, will be saved. And he goes forth to tell them that you who know the law so well, you who know of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you have been entrusted with the covenant. You may very well end up casting yourselves out, and there will be a wailing and grinding of teeth. You see, this question of who's going to be saved, we all want to know, and sometimes we think we can know, and we like to presume. But I'm going to tell you that it's not your job, and praise be to God, it's not your job. It's not my job to tell you who's going to heaven or who's going to hell, and neither is it yours. You don't want that job. I don't want that job. And there's a consequence of this. We're not allowed to go and declare somebody a saint. Only the church can do that in her wisdom. We have to pray and hope that the good Lord quickly and eagerly wipes away whatever stain of sin from somebody's soul so that they can make it into heaven. And similarly, no matter how bad we perceive someone, no matter how evil their actions look, we're not allowed to declare that somebody is in hell. That's not your job, and neither is it mine. We have to keep that in mind, because that presumption puts us into the same place as this gentleman who asked this question of our Lord. But our Lord doesn't leave them fully hanging. So we read this in the Gospel of Luke. At the very end of Luke's Gospel, our Lord does answer this question. There's only one instance in the entirety of the Gospels in which one person is definitively declared to be in heaven. The good thief. His name is Saint Dismas, as he is called. And let's take a second and reflect on him. So this gentleman, who was Jewish, by the way, which is showing that those who are faithful have the potential to be saved. This man, who has done some very grievous things, we do not know the extent to what he has done. But really, we use the term thief. It would be better to call him a revolutionary, just like Barabbas. And there is another gentleman, the bad thief, who may have done things just as bad or not even as bad as Saint Dismas. And they're both there on Good Friday, hanging on the cross. And if you look at an image of Saint Dismas, it's almost deceiving, because you know what it is? It is the image of a man hanging on a cross. And as he's there suffering the same death of our Lord, the bad thief says and starts berating and spewing vile towards our Lord and saying, "Cannot you save yourself?" And you know what St. Dismas says? "Have you no fear of God? Have you no fear of God? This man has done nothing criminal." And then he turns to our Lord and he says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And what does our Lord say in response? Today you will be with me in paradise. This is the only time in the Gospels in which our Lord makes it clear who's going in. And if you look at the math here, good thief, bad thief, both very sinful people, 50-50 odds at best. Let's not be presumptuous. Because remember, if you do have the grace of heroic virtue, and you are accepted and welcomed into the kingdom of heaven, I promise you, you will be very surprised by who's there. And similarly, you're going to be equally surprised of who's not there.